Hi, I'm Leonard Maltin here at Andres Pico Adobe Park in Mission Hills, California, to introduce Zorro, the complete first season. If you grew up in the silent movie era, then swashbuckling star Douglas Fairbanks introduced you to the character of Zorro. If you attended Saturday matinees in the 30s and 40s, you saw the masked hero in a number of exciting serials. And if you were past the age of kiddie shows, then Tyrone Power was your Zorro in the 1940 remake of the Fairbanks film. But if you grew up in the first television generation, as I did, then there was only one Zorro. He came to us courtesy of Walt Disney, and he was played by Guy Williams. Zorro was created by Pulp Fiction writer Johnston McCulley in 1919. And within a year's time, the irresistible hero of old California was on movie screens, personified by Douglas Fairbanks Sr. It was that film, The Mark of Zorro, that cemented the image of Zorro in the public's mind. And there's no question that this Robin Hood-like figure with a secret identity inspired such later characters as the Lone Ranger and Batman. Talk about making an impact on our popular culture. In the early 1950s, Walt Disney decided to revive the character in a TV series that didn't come to fruition for a number of years. But when he finally announced his first prime-time half-hour series, a self-contained show completely unlike the hour-long program he hosted every week, there was great fanfare. After all, this was Walt Disney, and he didn't do anything halfway. So when Zorro made his debut on Thursday night, October 10th, 1957, a huge audience awaited him. And from the first strains of his signature theme, American kids fell in love with Zorro.
Right comes a horseman known as Zorro.
You must remember there was no such thing as home video back then. No cable or satellite TV, no internet, just 3 broadcast networks. So when you had a hit show, it was seen by a vast number of people. Zorro averaged 40% of the entire viewing audience, an estimated 16.8 million people. That's a higher number than any network show earned in the 2008-2009 TV season. When you watch or revisit the show on this DVD set, I think you'll see why it was so popular. First off, it had arguably the greatest theme song and opening sequence on television.
Old renegade carves a Z with his blade, a Z that stands for Zorro.
Written by Disney music stalwart George Bruns, with lyrics by the man who brought Davy Crockett to life for Disney, Norman Foster. Foster also wrote and directed much of the first season, setting the lively, lighthearted tone for the show and establishing its central characters. Like Fess Parker before him, Guy Williams was virtually unknown when Walt cast him as Zorro, a part he was born to play, and it made him an overnight star. He seemed completely at ease, both as Don Diego and as the Man in Black, and he did most of his own swordplay on camera. The same man who had staged most of the great sword fights in movie history, Fred Cavens, was his coach. Buddy Van Horn, who grew up in and around the movie business, was Williams' stunt double, and Walt surrounded them with a great supporting cast. Walt Disney insisted on quality. There was animation in the opening titles, and matte paintings by studio artists Peter Ellenshaw and Albert Whitlock throughout the series to add scale and production value to the show. Walt's producer, Bill Anderson, and his writers didn't lock themselves into a formula. In those days, a season lasted 39 weeks, not like today's series, which make anywhere from 12 to 22 episodes a year. So, the first cycle of stories featuring Captain Monasterio ran 13 weeks. Then the show introduced a new character, the dim-witted Corporal Reyes, as a sidekick for Sergeant Garcia. Some shows would be self-contained, while others would be part of a 5-episode story. Top character actors were hired for supporting roles from week to week. Zorro was aimed mostly at younger viewers, and not unlike the old-time serials, managed to find a balance between serious storytelling, action, and comedy relief. I still love watching it, and I hope you will too. As bonus material on this disc, you'll find a more detailed history of the Zorro character and the making of this series. An excerpt from the Disneyland 4th Anniversary show from September 11, 1957, in which Walt himself introduced Zorro to his Mouseketeers and to all of us in the audience. And we're happy to present a 2-part Zorro adventure that appeared on Walt Disney Presents on October 30th and November 6th, 1960, more than a year after the weekly series went off the air. As you can tell, these were originally conceived as half-hour episodes for the 3rd season of the show, but they do form a continuous story. Having already used one of Hollywood's most prominent Latino stars, Cesar Romero, in season 2, Disney hired another, Gilbert Roland, to play El Cuchillo. Back in the 40s, Roland had starred as another Western hero, the Cisco Kid, in a series of B-movies. Appearing as the dancing tavern waitress is Rita Moreno, who 1 year later put those skills to even better use in the movie musical West Side Story, which earned her an Academy Award as Best Supporting Actress.